again. I just spent maybe 40 minutes recording a video, but my laptop had some serious issues with Google and it all just shut off. So let's see if I can do this again and it works. I want to use a recent road trip I went on to illustrate some principles that you should think about as you consider where you live and where you should live, and also how things are going to go in the near and long term. I've been reading articles left and right about some of the effects of the feds dropping tens of thousands of illegals into random cities and towns. And this is just one of many things that you've been warned about, and it's happening. And so imagine living in a place your whole life where you've expended major investments to set yourself up well, you and your family in a place, and then all of a sudden the feds make some shift and your life as you know it is over and you suddenly have to move, And in the past, you didn't have to worry about this much outside of some dam failing or, some other crazy, unlikely thing. But now the feds are pumping illegals into all these cities and towns across the country, and surprise, it's not a great place to live anymore. And so one of the themes I would like you to think about, and hopefully the context of this video assists you in doing, is how to live in a place or select a place, identify a place that is less governable, that's less corruptible by the feds or the county or the state or any government entity. So what I'm not telling you is go find a place to do Ruby Ridge 2.0. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm going to show you is how to use geography in this specific example, how to use geography to find a place that's harder to mess up. That's basically what I want to show you today. So on my road trip, I live east of Missoula, but as you're coming out of Missoula, which is south of the map here, what happens is you come up this very narrow mountain pass, and then it's a plain, and you hang a left onto this other highway, and this is one highway with one lane in either direction that goes all the way here, and this is several hundred miles. It's a 3-hour trip from here to here, to here, at 70 miles an hour. Okay, so from Missoula to Sandpoint, that's the speed limit. It's one lane in either direction. And what I want to show you is that this narrow valley, it's kind of carved. It's a pass carved by the river, I suppose. But there really isn't much on either side. In fact, along this whole drive for 3 hours, you're not going to see a single McDonald's. The closest McDonald's is right here in Sandpoint. And even Sandpoint itself is very small. They only have one McDonald's, right? I mean, we'll zoom in maybe, but you can check that out for yourself. It's a small place. So what happens is when you're in a place, I'll switch now. So we're going to zoom into this area here. You see how this is a big old plain? What's covered in farms? If we zoom in here, get rid of this. And we go to the satellite view. Look at all these farms here. If it ever loads. Come on. Okay. Do you see all these farms? It's nothing but farms in that valley. Now, what's happening is right here, they're starting to build luxury houses, and they're packing them in wherever they can. The problem is that, so I came up here on my road trip to buy some seeds in bulk from a farmer. I buy them by the ton for my animals and for growing here. But the farmer said that the city keeps pushing to rezone these farms so that they can build houses on them. And of course, the farmers have lived here in some cases for generations. The guy I buy from, his parents were there. And there was a very long stretch of time where all along this path that I've shown you, the only people that lived there were folks that loved that lifestyle and lived it at a very high cost, because there are no jobs through here. You have to be very creative to spin something up. And there was no high-speed internet and no working from home for the most part for years and years through here. And that all changed with COVID. And so what's happening is people are moving out here by the droves, and they're packing them in wherever they can fit them. Okay? So whether it's wealthy people moving in and grabbing up all the land that used to be inexpensive, productive, and beautiful farmland. The views from this area, you can look over the lake. It is absolutely gorgeous. You wouldn't believe it unless you saw it. And the climate, because you have this enormous lake here, it's beautiful. Okay? And that helps with the farming because it's a more constant temperature. This region of the country is notorious, like where I live, the temperature swings we have are insane. It's brutal for plants. It's almost impossible to grow anything. But here it's idyllic, okay? And they're packing people in. Okay? So, if you want to live in a place where you're not going to get flooded by wealthy people from California or illegals, you can't live in a place like this. Now, Sandpoint is not a big city. Look at the sparsity of stores here, right? There's a McDonald's. There are, I think, 2 grocery stores. Don't quote me on that. But there's nothing here, folks. This is a tiny, tiny little city. Look at the scale. That's 1,000 feet, right? And yet, these are the very small towns that the feds are pumping ridiculous numbers of illegals into and fundamentally changing the culture of the place. Crime goes through the roof. They can't teach anybody in schools because they don't have all these translators. The people are coming from countries where they probably grew up malnourished. They have very low IQs for the most part. And that's absolutely going to change things. All right. So let's go back to the map. Now, if I zoom out a bit, I need to be careful because I can't afford to make this video again, time-wise. Look at all these mountains. Okay. Remember Sodom and Gomorrah? They were cities of the plain. People build cities in flat spots for the most part, where there's room to grow. So if you go to a place where there's no room to grow, let me zoom in here on the satellite view. Okay, so we follow Highway 200 down. And I'm not saying you should move here. I'm saying this is one thing to think about when you're thinking about where to move, is look for room to grow because you don't want it. All right? So if we just zoom in to this, which is kind of more of a wider part of these passes, what do you see? Lots of farms. What about the towns? They are so little. Look at this. There's like 5 houses here, people. Now, driving down this road, there were for sale signs. But the point is, and it's gorgeous, by the way. You have the view of the river there. The point is, if you're in a position where you can move to a place like this, out in the middle of nowhere, where there really isn't room to grow, then you're cushioning yourself from this insanity. Now, what's the key here? The key here is to be in a place. It's to look for a place that can't survive with the infrastructure cut off. Now, that's backwards from how most people think of it. Okay? But that's actually a really good thing. If there were no infrastructure in a place like this where there are really cold winters and it snows a lot, what's going to happen? Did we lose our... Oh, I'm on the wrong map. Let me go back to this one. What's going to happen to this highway with 1 lane in either direction when it's covered in 3 feet of snow and no one's coming to plow it? And do you think people from, say, Spokane, which is the closest moderately sized city, you think that they're going to walk all the way up here and all the way down here to get to you if you live in Trout Creek, Montana? There's no way. There's no way that's going to happen. What about walking up from Missoula? all kinds of elevation gain and just cranking through here. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? You've got these giant valleys with plenty of space here and down here. Okay? This is the Bitterroot Valley. This is the Flathead Valley. Now, that's kind of specific to this area, but you see these like fingers of valleys, right? And if you overlay population densities onto this, you start to see some really interesting things. For example, there's like 200 people in this area right here. And that's maybe 10 people per mile averaged out. I just happen to know that, okay? But you zoom out to the broader United States, and we come over, oh, I don't know, let's check out Utah. Just for the heck of it. How many people live in this strip of I-15? How many millions of people live in Utah? Okay? And they're all concentrated right here. What's going to happen if the lights go out? Where are these people going to go? Because if you look at the population density, good luck. You say, well, up into the mountains. Okay, well, guess what? How big is that? This is like 2 miles. This is like 4 miles across. Tooele, I'm very, very familiar with. I used to be the company commander in the National Guard there. Like, this is all getting built up. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to go here. You're surrounded by people till you get way up here. All right? And even then, it's still like if you average out the number of people in the square miles you've got. And there you're still out west. When you head east, boy, you're in trouble. You know, let's just randomly jump down into any place. Like, where are you going to go around here? There are people everywhere. So, some people think that they've gotten out of the fray because they live in a small town. That's not enough. That's my point here. That's not enough. Things like geographical barriers are very helpful to establishing good places to be when everything falls apart. Now, it's a double-edged sword because just like these people who lived, I've lost my road here, it's this pass. Just like the people who lived in this pass before high-speed internet, you need to have something you can do for money. And the properties are getting more and more expensive by the day. So that becomes a big challenge. However, if you can solve that equation, then you find yourself in extremely low population density areas with geographical barriers that aren't going anywhere, and it becomes harder and harder for the government to mess it up. So I invite you to think about that.